You know what I'm going to end this with? It's with the story time. Meaning to tell a lot of you for a couple of years now, really, when I think about it, but really over the past couple months. It has to do with the issues of pornography, race, intimidation when it comes to tearing down a person's self-esteem, and perception. Okay? And maybe I should title this story time. What should I call it? I guess I'll call it I'm going to call it The Black Girl Who Did Not Do Interracial Scenes. Okay. Back when I worked in the Los Angeles porn industry, I shot a few scenes. I had a few scenes under my belt at this phase. I knew about what was going on. I'd gone through my first agent, and at this particular point, I was working with Type 9. So Type 9 books me on this porn gig. Can't remember the name of the studio at this particular time, but the scene is the only girl scene I have. So anyone who, wants to be a little fact finder, if they look up the only girl, meaning scene I have, not group of girls, but girl on girl scene I have, then you'll be able to find who shot this and whatnot. So anyway, this was my first encounter with a porn star known as Malia Million. And I'm really glad I got to know Malia Million, because certain things that she told me helped to not only affirm but validate certain things I'd wondered and thought about people but wasn't quite sure about. It actually validates some things for many of you out there who might be watching me for whatever reason, who work in the adult industry, and you don't want to say that you follow my work, but you probably do, and you find my research to be a bit helpful to you. You might find this story useful. Also, when it comes to dealing with the racist mentality within the porn industry when you're African American. So anyway, I get to the studio or the set for this girl scene that I was cast in. It was in an industrial park, and I meet the director. I think that the scene was for porn.com. I think that's who it was for, but I cannot remember the director's name, but I liked him because he was very straightforward, no bullshit, a bit of an abrasive personality. He actually reminded me of like a young George Costanza from Seinfeld. I'm serious. I don't remember his name, nothing. But the scene that day was me and this girl, Malia Million, girl on girl. They had us both dressed kind of like in these little schoolgirl kind of outfits. And she and I kind of favored one another. So it was a hot scene. Anyway, here's the thing though. So I meet her, we're chit-chatting and everything. She's like, oh, who's your agent? I think we had the same agent at the time, actually, when I really think about it. But here's the weird thing. She was telling me at the time that she was staying at this porn guy's apartment or house or something. And she kept talking about him. And it was so annoying how she kept talking about him too. And she's like, oh, I can't wait to talk to Donnie about this. I can't wait to talk to Donnie about that. Lo and behold, this Donnie who she was staying with, guess who it turns out to be? that asshole stalker I'm dealing with today, Donald Sion. Long. So anyway, talking about this guy, right? And then she starts asking me, she's like, oh, I haven't done any interracial scenes yet. Have you? And so I say to her, and I was surprised that she said that to me, really. Because I hadn't met any Black girls in the porn industry at that point who hadn't done interracial scenes, because it was kind of a given that, and it shouldn't, when I really think about it, pause. I wonder how many Black girls in the industry have refused over the years to do scenes with white guys. Something to think about, huh? Because when you think about it, if there's Black girls out there who don't do interracial, at least what I call interracial, then those would, their first scene with a white guy, I would think they could command a higher rate for, being that the, opposite is the case. But anyway, let me finish the story, because you might laugh at the end, because I have been laughing since this girl said what she said to me. Anyway, so she's telling me that she hadn't done any interracial scenes. So I was like, oh, and I'm like, well, that really was never an issue for me. My first scene that I did in the porn industry was interracial with a guy named, and from day one, when I decided that I was going to do porn, it just was never in my mind that, race would be a factor when it came to who I would work with. So she was like, oh yeah, I haven't done any interracial scenes yet, but I might later on, but then again I might not. And I'm like, wow. So we're getting ready to start the scene and everything, and I say to her, I'm like, well, one thing I've realized is that when it comes to feeling, there really isn't any difference between a white guy and a Black guy's penis. So, you shouldn't really look at a white guy as a scary thing. And she looks at me and she's like, I meant that I don't do Black guys. And I was like, I was very confused at that moment, because this girl was Black. So I thought maybe I was mistaken, though, because, maybe she was Aborigine from Australia, and, but with an American accent, and I didn't realize it. I didn't know. So I was taken aback, and I said to her, and I'm like, but aren't you Black? How would that be interracial if, and she's like, oh no. She's like, I'm not categorized as Black. So that was a very interesting moment in my life. And when I think back, knowing at that particular time was being highly exposed to that guy Donald Sion, who, as we all know now, is an extreme racist. I mean, I have that voice recording from those voicemails and phone calls to prove it, where he repeatedly calls me by racially derogatory names. He had somehow brainwashed that girl into thinking that she was no longer African American. That was very weird when I really think about it. She wound up having a lot of problems later, bullying also, specifically with some issues pertaining to the porn agent known as Shy Love. So when I just think about a lot of what I've gone through with the porn industry, with the stalking and the racism and whatnot. I like to think that it really started in 2011, but I mean, these people, they've had a pattern of doing this for a very long time. And when I think about, that situation I just related to you about the girl who was under the impression that being with a black guy in porn was interracial for her, I guess because she felt that culturally she was more white than black. Really, I guess just when I think about things, nothing even surprises me anymore.